Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. The roadmap shows various things that Cloud Imperium are working on for the next major Star Citizen patch, and currently the one after that, so 3.17 and 3.18. But it has a load of what Cloud Imperium say is important development information that's on the progress tracker. And we also know that Cloud Imperium are going to start to scale back those release views in favour of the progress tracker, so we will only see the next major patch. With that in mind, I wanted to start highlighting features and work that's expected to be completed during Q1 of this year. What are they working on? What is expected to be done? What does it mean for the game? And what we got currently showing in Alpha 3.17 and 3.18. So let's take a brief look at those next two major patches, 3.17 and 3.18, and what's currently planned for them. More features are likely going to turn up, and it's always possible features will get delayed as well, so bear that in mind, and these patches at the moment are relatively bare-boned, although there is some meaty chunks to them. So for Alpha 3.17, which is expected to be out around the end of March, we've got the RSI Scorpius Heavy Fighter. That's a cool two-seater heavy fighter, big old turret, which is a remote turret, but it can move from the top of the ship to the sort of rear of the ship to shoot at anything around it is the idea, but we'll have to wait and see how effective it is. We've also got the MISC Hull C, which we know has been making great progress. They've got the head texture updates, which should see us having more customization to our characters, and NPCs should look different. We should have more NPCs, more variety there. The Maria Pure of Heart Hospital in Lorville is getting implemented, so that'll sort of bring it in line with the other planets. Coffee shop vendor. This was almost like a little meme edition. So we're getting a coffee shop vendor that can interact with various machines in a coffee shop and serve you. It's sort of part of Cloud Imperium's continued expansion and updates to NPCs around the landing zone areas, and getting the areas there to feel more alive as they make the NPCs and AI more appropriate for those areas and do more and more and more. We also have mining gadgets, which are literally purchasables, gadgets that you can then put on asteroids to give you bonuses to mining them, and then you get into your prospector or mole and then mine them, and hopefully you can have a much better mining experience. There's also a little mini game involved with those to put the waveform correct and things like that. Ship-to-ship refueling is actually a pretty big feature in 3.17, and this has the Starfarer being able to fill its fuel tanks full of quantum fuel or hydrogen fuel and then provide that to another player. You can go up to a player, you can set prices for it, they can dock with you, and they can refuel. There's the expectation that fuel will be changing somewhat in the 3.17 patch, so that you can run out of it with that quantum or hydrogen entirely. There's also going to be reserve fuel tanks for ships, so they can dock with the Starfarer, so when you're out of like hydrogen fuel, you'll still be able to go, please help me, they'll be able to come to you, and then you'll still have enough fuel, and when they get close enough range to be able to go and quickly dock with them. There's selling items to shops. Now, we sell items to shops already, don't we? Well, no, we don't. So things like armor, things that off lootables, lots of little things. The reasons to now strip bodies and look for loot containers and actually go through them, that's what's coming in 3.17, because you'll be able to sell all those items to kiosks at landing zones. Really looking forward to that. That's 3.17 as we know it at the moment. You can probably expect other things to turn up. Hopefully nothing else will get pushed off, and be very sad if it does. However, we'll have to wait and see what happens. So what's left for Alpha 3.18? This is the patch that's planned to be sort of going live around the end of June. Well, there are only a few features currently planned for 3.18, with Cloud Imperium expected to add a lot more once 3.17 is out, because they'll go, actually, we know what we're able to get into that patch now and what's targeted. So we currently have two of the most important features here, and then things to support those. Cargo refactor is potentially the most important thing that is currently listed on the release view of the roadmap. We're going to be very specific with that, because obviously we are hoping to see server meshing and pyro and things like that later this year, and they are massive. However, the cargo system refactor allows both found and purchased cargo to be picked up, moved around, and placed into the cargo grid of a ship. So this is commodities and stuff you buy as well. You'll be able to loot and raid ships much more readily is the idea. Piracy should have much more of a use. You will actually be able to take the cargo off another ship. You'll be able to go to a derelict or wreck and actually go, oh, I can take all this great cargo off. Now, There are some other things that I think we need here. We need dedicated tractor tools. Well, we potentially need ship tractor beams. Persistent hangars would be good, which were moved out of 3.17 and now have work going into Q3 2022. We're expecting to see things like loading and unloading times associated with cargo, the ability to rent sort of more space at stations at some point, and there to be costs associated with purchasing and selling cargo when it comes to loading and unloading really again, as well as potentially some of the dynamic universe sim to start to affect pricing for these goods. We may also see lots of different types of cargo container, things like that as well. We also have salvage, tier 0 salvage, allowing for hand salvaging and repairing with the salvage tool, which you'll be able to carry around. You'll be able to basically remove parts of the hull, the precious materials in the hulls, and then patch up holes in the hull of a ship. We also have the Drake Vulture coming out here, and it's expected to have its ability to hull salvage in the same way. So you should be able to do hand-based hull stripping and Drake Vulture ship-to-ship stripping as well, at least in some function. That's what we're looking forward to. Salvage actually coming online potentially in 3.18, one of the most delayed features in the game. Hopefully it will make it in that patch. So let's now focus on highlights for work on the progress tracker, which is basically just a big list of work that Cloud Imperium are working on, and is basically a schedule for what their internal teams are currently doing and what they've got planned in the future. And this does change. Things do get reprioritized, pushed out, jumped back on, that sort of stuff. So you can expect some of these to change. Also, some of these features may have already been completed. Some might need more work before being implemented in a patch. Some might be seen in Alpha 3.17 or 3.18 or later this year. But these features don't necessarily have a patch they're currently targeted for. So some of these features still might need other features to come online as well, or to go through the Squadron 42 pipeline before coming into the persistent universe. Just sort of bear that in mind. Atmospheric pressure damage is something that I wanted to highlight here. So that's going to make players and NPCs and ships receive damage when they're in situations where exterior pressure exceeds pressure resistance of your particular ship or armor that you're wearing. So if you're going deep into Crusader, if you're going deep into a gas cloud, if you're swimming or something like that, then you may start to take damage from that. It's just an interesting thing that they're going to be adding to the game, which I do think will make some exploration a bit more challenging but interesting. The Banu Merchantman has some of its work completing in Q1 from the concept and weapons content teams. It still has a lot more work to do, and it has work scheduled until the end of Q2 currently, looking at actually building out more of the ship. So we will follow that once we know more, but I think a lot of people are sort of excited about the Banu Merchantman. We're seeing bombs, current bomb work be completed for the game, so we also know that Cloud Imperium are working on cluster bombs at the moment as well. Bounty Hunting version 2 has started work this quarter and plans to run into Q3. This will enable players to track criminals via the Mobiglass security app, and that's going to be linked to sort of distress beacons, comm arrays, air traffic control systems, cameras, NPC informants, other players seeing them, things like that, and then you'll have to go, they were last seen here, and by these people, and they did this. This will rely on various new backend tech, including virtual AI and the NPC scheduler, security services. This ties into the NPC tracker service, which saw work completed in January as well. So lots of cool stuff and tech for AI. Actually, talking about that, there are a load of AI and NPC improvements that are being worked on, have already been completed during this quarter, making them feel less stiff and robotic, as well as adding their more behaviors and interactivity to them, also making them more aware of their surroundings and actually be able to navigate those surroundings and interact with them better. They're adding more NPC archetypes like hospital surgeons and making the shopping experience more enjoyable, as well as getting NPCs to use arcade machines and vending machines. I do also want to mention there is a illegal goods dealer that was supposed to be completed at the end of December, at least the work they had for it, so that might be seeing implementation relatively soon. This goods dealer is a new roaming vendor and basically brokers illegal products, located mostly wandering around shadowy and secretive areas, so behind areas, probably around Grim Hex, around sort of abandoned areas and that things. This dealer deals without a license and without permission, and is always on the lookout for security. There is also work wrapping up on having NPCs being able to move around planets and pathfind more easily, as well as land ships and move between the planets and ground. Now, that's a bit further out actually being implemented in the game, admittedly, but it's still work that is being completed, at least partly. New homestead outposts might be largely completed by the end of March. This is sort of small homes for AI to live in as shelters. We saw some of these, I believe, on the CitizenCon Pyro demo, where they showed this sort of new little villages that they had. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules. They provide basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. We do know this is sort of at least loosely linked to player bases and things like that as well, but they are new locations that we will see on the ground, and we're expecting to see a lot of them in Pyro, but we'll have to wait and see exactly how they're utilised. Fire hazard and fire extinguisher work looks to be wrapping up as well. This could be great news for more interesting missions in-game, as well as damage control on ships. Something I'm very excited to see. Engineers actually running around on the medium and larger ships. The Tier 1 version of the Gen 12 renderer looks to be wrapping up as well. It will require more work before being fully implemented in-game, and then it's going to be a bit longer before we have that tasty Vulkan integration. However, each major patch will see more and more tangible updates to the Gen 12 renderer that will actually be integrated into the game. Work on dedicated tractor and salvage tools are wrapping up too this quarter, which is great because we're going to start to need to use them in game, as I said. As we are on the road to Pyro, work on jump points and spacescaping may already be complete, or at least the sort of areas around jump points. Also, something that may excite you if you like rivers, how about lava rivers? So lava tech was worked on and appears to be wrapping up this quarter. So this is modifying and tuning river tech to produce impressive lava rivers and lakes. With that in mind, work on rivers and basins in general should be wrapping up now, with work on roads wrapping up in Q2. That said, we do not know what's needed to then integrate rivers in-game, and then sort of get them into the planetary pipeline, and then into our hands. Obviously, once they're in the planetary pipeline, then they need to build them into planets and moons, and that's a sort of another step. Could we see them this year? Oh, yeah, I think we will. Could we see them in Q1 or Q2? Less likely. Long-distance probing is also being worked on by the Systemic Services and Tools team. This feature will allow players to launch quantum traveling probes that can detect signatures at extreme ranges far beyond the reach of ship scanners. The signatures can ultimately be used to identify ports of interest and plan quantum travel. I do think it's going to be a while beyond the work they've got planned in Q1 before we actually see it in our hands, but I think it's interesting to talk about because it's sort of like for exploration and things like that. Concept work on the mighty Hull D should conclude later in the month, obviously, and there's a load more phases before that's in the game, but concept is important. There are lots of player interaction improvements and updates to things like quantum travel experience and reputation updates that will have your reputation driving AI hostility, and we're completing this quarter. There was a rescue transport mission that looked like it was completed in January, taking advantage of AI follow behaviors to create missions where players transport customers from one location to another, so NPCs or I suppose players, but we sort of have that already, along with prototype missions where players must rescue imperiled clients from dangerous situations and escort them to safety. Now, we do know that the taxi missions have been pushed off the release view, which I assume was directly connected to that rescue and transport mission feature, but I am expecting to see it still at some point in the not too distant future. In what may be our first truly physicalized component beyond weapons, shield emitters look to be wrapping up in March. This will be converting the shield emitter into a physical object that can then be targeted and destroyed, giving players the ability to permanently disable an enemy's shields without taking out the shield generators. So shield generators will provide the resource to the emitters to then project the shields. There is lots of various work on server meshing and its prerequisites completing. This ranges from updating the air traffic control services to having a robust asset reference database. Hybrid service work also wraps up. This moves the network code replication layer out of the dedicated game servers into a standalone service. This is super important for the ability to do crash recovery, to have server meshing, to have sharding. The first version of server meshing will use the hybrid service to manage client and server streaming, replication of networked states between clients and servers, and persisting state changes to the entity graph. It is all server meshing and sharding work that is incredibly important to the game, and things like crash recovery, so one of the nodes crashes if a server crashes, potentially it is able to regenerate and just go boop, so that you don't even notice in some situations that it has crashed. And if it does crash, then you should actually be able to get a direct copy of when it crashed without causing you too much disruption as one of the others. So the network team have also been working on something called Atlas, which adds functionality that splits the game up into multiple manageable regions known as territories, which are then provides the replication layer and dedicated game servers and all that sort of jazz. Huge amount of server meshing work and related things being completed, and there are various features completing that are important for the new inventory system and tying that into the cargo refactor and server meshing too. I think it's safe to say that server meshing, pyro, and NPC and AI features are the focus for the Persistent Universe and Star Citizen this year, or at least currently. Obviously, Squadron 42 takes the lion's share of development, but when we're talking about Star Citizen, the MMO, the Persistent Universe, that's what's being worked on: server meshing, pyro, NPC and AI features. With the changes to the roadmap, we will be looking at the progress tracker a lot more. Hopefully Cloud Imperium will give us a bit more context to what additional work a feature might need once it's completed its current listed work on the tracker, what each of the individual teams are actually specifically working on, what their completion means for a feature, and how it links together a bit more. Because at the moment, as I've said on a previous podcast, it's like, well, I sort of know what's going on here, and I know how this ties together with the monthly report and what Cloud Imperium have been talking about in Inside Star Citizen or dev responses. However, a lot of it's going to be speculation. I'm going to be throwing bones up in the air and seeing where they land and going, well, it probably means pyro, ? It certainly is something I would like to see more clarity from, and certainly something Cloud Imperium could improve significantly just by giving us a few tweaks to that progress tracker. Boom! That's it for a look at the roadmap for Q1 of this year. At the moment, I'm very much looking forward to server meshing updates and pyro getting added to the game. I hope that we see these features come to fruition by the end of the year. But what do you think? Will we see the cargo refactor and salvage later this year? Oh, please give it to 3.18. Will 3.17 be a solid patch, or do you think we're going to constantly see delays and features just out of reach? Are you looking forward to anything like, Banu Merchantman related? What would you like to see Cloud Imperium add to the progress tracker? And how would you like to see sort of development updates and roadmap updates portrayed to you in the future? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below.
Mummy, my friend told me at school today that Star Citizen was a scam. Oh, Tim, is that why you got into a fight? Yes, Mummy. The only scam is people stealing all your internet infos and blocking your ability to watch things on Netflix and such with regional-based access. That's why we use our words, Tim. You should have told those bullies to get NordVPN, and also that Star Citizen is the best damn space sim ever.
Yes, these two people are right. Get NordVPN, and also Star Citizen's great. Also, Timmy was a 35-year-old teacher at the school. And it wasn't even a school, it was a pub, and he was a barman. Every month we have a ship giveaway, and for February 2022, it's for an Aegis Saber, the high-tech medium fighter with loads of firepower, but it comes in an auspicious red paint scheme as part of the Red Festival, as well as lifetime insurance and a Star Citizen game package. All you need to do to be in for a chance of winning is comment on any of my videos made during the month. You can further support the channel by clicking the join button underneath any of my videos. You can also donate or become a Patreon. Your feedback, though, from comments really helps the channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you're looking for a diegetic little controlly boy that makes your Star Citizen experience and potentially some other games pretty good fun on your touchscreen devices, then check out Game Glass. You've got that, you've got NordVPN links, you've got loads of other stuff, all in the links below. Click them all! Click them all! Maybe not all of them, that would be madness.